pitch, a swing and a high fly ball to center field. It is deep, and the game is tied. Alex Gordon, and the Royals have tied it in the bottom of the ninth. 2-2, and a swing and a high fly ball to right field. Granderson has to drift back. This will be deep enough. He makes the catch. Here comes Escobar. Here comes the throw. Not in time. And the Royals win game one in 14 innings.
The Royals take game one of the World Series with a 5-4 win in 14 innings. Leading 4-3 in the ninth, the Mets brought in closer Jeurys Familia, who gave up the game-tying homer to Alex Gordon. Did the Mets lose the World Series in the ninth inning last night, Skip?
Stephen A., I picked the Mets to win the World Series after you convinced me in the Cubs series that the Mets were as legit as I didn't think they were. Obviously, they beat the Cubs, they steamrolled the Cubs, who I thought had beaten the two best teams in baseball, St. Louis and Pittsburgh. So I must tell you, I stayed up and watched this whole game last night because I could not turn it off. And my lingering emotion on very little sleep is that the Mets are in big trouble. I'm not sure I'm going to leap to the conclusion that they lost it, but my instincts are telling me they did. And Stephen A., as you know, it was as classic and wildly swinging a baseball game as you will ever see, especially on the World Series stage, because first Eric Hosmer commits a Buckner-esque blunder, should have gotten his body in front of a high-hopping grounder, misplayed it, let it eat him up. And it allows the Mets to take a 4-3 lead that there's no way they're going to give back because, as you know, Familia is going to come in and slam the door. And as we all know, and we've learned and learned and learned, Familia was untouchable. Familia was invincible. And the last thing I expected, as my eyes were starting to close in the bottom of the ninth, is for the 8-hole hitter, a struggling Alex Gordon, once great, but struggling now, to not just hit a home run. It wasn't just that he hit a home run. He annihilated it. He hit it. He hit it to the Oklahoma line. It was the shot heard not just around Kansas City, as Molly said. It was heard round the world. It was Kirk Gibson-esque. So we went from Buckner-esque to Gibson-esque. It didn't win the game, even though it felt like it did, because he mauled it so bad, it flew well over the center field fence. It left Cespedes sort of slumped against the wall like, oh, my God, what just happened? And it seemed to take the fire out of the Mets, who were on fire, who thought they were invincible. And then it came full circle to a fairy tale ending for the home team when Eric Hosmer goes from all-time GOAT to hero with the sac fly that eventually wins the game. I realize momentum in baseball is only as good as the next day's starting pitcher. And tonight's starting pitcher, as you well know, is DeGrom on long rest. Obviously, he's been the Mets' most dominating starter. But, Stephen A., I still don't understand why he couldn't have started game one. That was troubling to me, just like it was troubling in the previous series that Arrieta couldn't start game one for the Cubs. So I think you just ask DeGrom, even though he's got a little tired arm, you just got to do it. You've got to suck it up and make an opening game statement. We are in control in Kansas City. Now they're not in control. More pressure on DeGrom tonight, because if they don't win this one, they're really in trouble. I think they will lose the series if they don't win tonight. I don't love their chances against a Cueto who struggled in the postseason, but I think at home, with that crowd on fire now for the Royals, I think the Mets are in big trouble.
I think Cueto can be had. That's number one. Number
he has been had.
I do agree with you. I do agree with you that I thought DeGrom should have started game one. I don't quite understand why Matt Harvey had to go game one. I was worried about that. But my mentality was that, remember, I picked the Mets in 5. I thought that the Mets would steal one of these two games and then protect their home turf and close it out at Citi Field in Queens, New York. That's just my thinking. Everything's about this staff to me, Skip. About Harvey, about DeGrom, about Syndergaard, who, by the way, I don't like the fact that he cut his hair. I don't like that. You know, I don't like that at all. Don't mess with what's working for you. I don't like the fact that he cut his hair. Please don't get me wrong. But nevertheless, I still believe in him, and I believe in Matz to a slightly lesser degree, but I still believe in him. Cespedes and those boys in outfield messing up that play to allow the inside the park run on the very first pitch definitely turned me off. Hosmer's error was something that the Mets should have been taking advantage of. I have never, believed this or not, Skip, I've never really been a fan of Familia. It's one of the things me and my boy Jeff argue about all the time. He hasn't blown a save since July 3rd. I said, I don't care. I mean, listen, you got to remember that for me, Mariano Rivera is the standard. It's one thing to close. It's another thing to be dominant while closing. As Alec Baldwin said in that movie, Glengarry Glen Ross, always be closing. That's what I'm looking for a closer to do. And when I see Familia, my problem with them is that on many, many occasions, even when he's won, Skip, he's made it far more interesting than it needed to be. And that's why I wasn't surprised. I mean, I was very disappointed when I saw it. I was fearful he was going to give up a hit. I didn't think it was going to be a 438-foot shot straight away over the center field wall. I didn't think that was going to happen. But nevertheless, it is what it is. It's just one game. I said it before, and I'll say it again. I know the Royals can play small ball. I know they can manufacture runs. Lorenzo Cain for the Royals was on my radio show yesterday, Sirius XM Mad Dog Sports Radio, 1 to 3 p.m. Eastern Time every weekday, right there on Mad Dog Sports Radio. The point that I'm trying to make to you is that he told me yesterday that, listen, we have a way we've got to get on base, but we have ways to get on base without relying on the long ball. That can be problematic for the Mets, but at the end of the day, I've never seen superior hitting, superior base running, superior run manufacturing usurp superior pitching. And I believe the Mets have superior pitching, which is why I believe in them, and I believe they'll turn this around. I think they win tonight, Game 2.
And I believe the Kansas City Royals are the best fastball hitting team in baseball, and I don't think it's even close.
They are.
And DeGrom is going to have to be really good with his secondary pitches, his breaking ball, his off-speed pitches. He's going to have to be virtually perfect tonight to keep them from scoring a couple runs. That may be all they need.
Slight little warning. Mets infield, they got to be on their P's and Q's. Outfield, of course, too. But definitely the infield, these guys have to be kept off base. No errors. Bring your A game on the defensive side of the ball. You keep Kansas City off the base paths, you can demoralize them. Even if they're not scoring runs, Skip, if they find ways to get on base, it emboldens them because they know how to manufacture runs. It's not enough to avoid the home run. You literally got to keep these boys off base.
And by the way, the Mets' cornerstone player, their version of Derek Jeter, David Wright, he did commit the error that opened the door for the winning run to score.
Very important.
Had 2 hits, though. Had a couple of hits.
Point of order here. DeGrom hasn't cut his hair yet after the World Series, so long hair don't care. Love that one.
No, I'm talking about Syndergaard.
Yeah, Syndergaard.
Oh, sorry. Okay. And anyway, a team that goes up 2-0 has an 80% chance of winning the World Series, so pressure is on. Dez, back on the field for the Cowboys.
Uh-oh.
What does this mean for the Big D?
Oh,
We'll react after the break.